And we are back. So we began to explore what sin is and how we see sin as perhaps a mistake or a weakness or something that can be rationalized or justified away. But it is not like that. And how we God sees sin is so much worse than what we think sin really is. So what ultimately am I talking about when we say that Jesus was nailed on the cross? It was more than just nails that kept him on the cross. It was his love for us, and also, um, the nails on the cross could also be symbolized or represent other things that we don't usually think about. Like it can be personified, um, like our hatred, our independence. Those are the things that nail Jesus to the cross. Other things such as our shame, our guilt, our greed, right? Our self-interest, our independence, our fear. All these things are things that nailed Jesus on a cross. Things that we have done that we know we should not do, including lying, stealing, killing, murdering, adultery, all these things, fornication, anything that we do not listen to the conscience that God has given us. Like I say, it could be slander, it could be lying, it could be over exaggeration, it could be simple things like not listening to uh, uh, people that God has sent to us to speak to us about certain things. So, you know, all these things are sin because they brought us they basically, like, they separate us from God. Sin keeps us from God, and that's why the death of Jesus was so important, because he had to do this in order to free us from sin. Um, so sin adds up. It starts small, like a small seed, and then it grows, and when it's fully grown, it leads to death. And imagine someone who's royalty or someone who is very, very important, they come into your country or to your land or to your town or province or city or even your home, right? Someone um, that you should treat really well, but then you treat this person really badly, and you ask this person to wash your toilet for you, to wash your washroom, to to do things that a guest of honor should not be doing, like washing your doing your laundry, for example, or doing something like cleaning your house for you. Like, that is something that a dignitarian or celebrity or someone who is really, really important should not be doing. um, um, but this is what we have done when Jesus came, and Jesus is God in the flesh. God the Father sent Jesus to the world to tell us about himself, to show us who God is, and we have done horrible things to him, and we treated him with such disrespect and so shamefully that there's no excuse, and it just piles on our sin upon humanity, and upon humankind, mankind. It is so horrible. And now, let me give you another illustration in terms of how bad sin is. If we look at diseases and viruses and germs, right? If you ever seen a germ under a microscope, and you took it and you magnified and you examined it, you will see, this little headless, faceless thing that floats around. and they're really strange shaped usually, but they also might be really beautiful in their uniqueness, right? But these diseases, these germs, they're able to take on and multiply and ultimately corrupt a person, and it can grow and it can enter a person's body and cause such harm. This microscopic germs, and they can kill people too. So in the same way, sin is like that. It's like a really small thing sometimes, but it adds up, it multiplies, and eventually it kills. Which is why we need Jesus' death on the cross to get rid of, to free us from this, uh, from the jaws of death, literally, or to free us from the power of death. So I mean, when you look at a small germ on in under a microscope, it's very very small. It's nothing, and even when you magnify it, you know that it's actually a really really small specimen, right? But when you actually see the germ go to work and start to corrupt and destroy, multiply and disrupt, it is not so innocent anymore. Um, so it may look innocent, but it in the end it becomes something that can literally kill a person and might even eat the person from the inside out. I don't want to get too graphic, but I just want to let you know that sin is deadly. I mentioned this yesterday, and sin is deadly, and we can discuss this scientifically, academically, intellectually, socially, but at the end of the day, we need to understand that this is not an invention by the moralist. We, like, it wasn't invented. Like, this is something that is true. We know it in our conscience. We know when we do something wrong. We know when we do something that we should not be doing. And this is what sin is, right? It may look harmless. It may be harmless. It may feel good. It may make us happy, and sometimes sin does that. But at the end of the day, when you look at the cross and what Jesus had to go through on the his death on the cross, is it's not a laughing matter. It's not funny. It's very very serious, and sin is very serious. And in this nature, in the nature, we see the true nature of what sin is. Like I said, it when it grows up, it leads to death, and this is the kind of sin and the kind of virus or the germ or the disease that Jesus had to die for. He had to, in order to remove it from us, he has cut it out, and he took on. He became the ultimate sacrifice. And perhaps you and I will never fully understand the true nature of sin. There's a song that I think of. It's like when I see, like no, okay. That's another song. Sorry, this other song is like I'll never know how much it costs, to see Jesus on the cross, and so I want to ask you this question. Actually, it's a really really profound question. Is a lot of people like to, you know, explore this question. I've heard it before many times, um, but maybe you have not heard it before. I don't want to share it with you. I want to ask you, what. I think we really answered what's the question. What is sin? So the next question I want to ask is, who crucified Christ? Who crucified Jesus? Who is the one who crucified Jesus? People would say, oh, it was the Romans, it was the Pharisees, it was the people who were the religious leaders at the time. And there's something I want to introduce to you, a term that's called, okay, first of all, you need to understand what a Pharisee is. A Pharisee is someone who is very religious and who basically does everything according to the law, or he or she thinks. Pharisee is usually very legalistic, and I might look it up and put a definition of it in the description below of what a Pharisee is. So there's something that is called Phariseeism. So Phariseeism is basically uh, uh, you know, the school of Pharisees, I guess. um, right. So it is it is basically it is basically a theological term, but you understand what it is when I give you an when I try to give you an illustration. So first of all, the question is, who crucified Jesus? Who crucified Jesus Christ? And again, people will say the Pharisees or Romans or the soldiers or this and that. But at the end of the day, if you answer any of those things, you are a Pharisee, or you have that that the wrong pharisaical thinking, because you're blaming someone else. You're not taking it. You're not taking responsibility for nailing Jesus on the cross. I mean, you and I, and everyone, but let's talk about us and you specifically you and me. We nailed Jesus on the cross. We are the ones, by our sin and the actions that we have taken, we are responsible for his death as much as anyone else. Because sometimes I've heard it also said that if you're the only person on earth that is a sinner, then Jesus would also come and die for you, even if you're the only one. I don't want to get into that line of thinking right now, but I want to say that you are as responsible as anyone else, and um, to say that anyone else crucified Jesus is to be pharisaical, and to be you know to blame other people, and that's really what we need to avoid and be careful of, because if there's any other reason why the cross had to be, is because only a crucified savior can save us from our sins. No one else can save us. No sinner can save us. You need a pure person that is sinless in order to satisfy the wrath and anger and the justice and the penalty of sin. And I'm going to get into that tomorrow in another video. But I want you to think about this very, very carefully, that you are one of the reasons why Jesus had to die on the cross. I want you to take this very personally, and you need to come face to face with this fact that you are responsible for his death, and he died for you. If you're not responsible for it, then he did not die for you, and he did die for you. He did die for you, and it is a very personal thing, and I'm going to talk more about why it is so personal tomorrow. So time and time again, we'll come back to this, and you really, as a Christian, we can never really get away from the cross, because the cross is pivotal and it is central to the whole gospel and the whole salvation plan of God. Okay, I'm going to continue this tomorrow. So today, let me just summarize a bit. Today we started exploring and continue to explore what sin is. What sin is according to us. We talked about it yesterday. Today we explore what sin is to God, and what basically what are the sins that would have nailed Jesus on the cross. God is a judge, and judgment belongs to him. And sin is like a virus. It's like a germ. It spreads and it grows and eventually it kills people. It is you could say sin globally is a pandemic as well. We are, suffering from this condition, this sin, this virus, this disease, in our soul, in our spirit, in our, in our lives, in our world. The whole world is infected by sin. Sin is deadly, So we looked at sin in general, but also we need to look at our own sin, and we need to beware of Phariseeism, or being Pharisaical, or being a Pharisee. Right? We need to not blame other people for the cross, because the reason for the cross is our sin. We need to take responsibility for it, and we need to look at our sin, not just other people's sin, but we need to, see our sin as sin and how deadly and dangerous it is. And with that, I'm going to leave you to think about that. If you need, listen to this again, and we'll continue tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.